Hello everyone, my name is KryptoCal and welcome to the next episode of FTB Skies. In the last episode we went ahead and got a massive start into applied energistics and we got a bunch of auto crafting set up and a whole bunch of other stuff too. In between episodes I have been doing a little bit of work though. I went ahead and got ourselves some extra CPUs, so now we have a total of 4 crafting CPUs that can be running at the same time. And there's always room for expansion if we need to. I'm sure we can find some more space, but I think 4 will be a good starting point. Also, if we come down into the processing room, I did a little bit of work down here as well. First off, I added an ender chest here with an export bus that is exporting prediction matrix with a crafting card. Because these have a crafting card, it'll always try and craft these to fill whatever it's exporting into. And we're exporting into an ender chest. And over here, I have the exact same setup where I just have all of these prediction matrices from this ender chest being piped in directly now to our simulation chambers. I decided to make a couple less of them and just only have 2 emeralds, 1 nether star now, and then 1 of the blaze, sheep, and then the spider at the top. And they're all being extracted out into these 3 different loot fabricators and then right back into our main storage system. I also decided to start keeping some of the general predictions in our storage system because there is a couple uses for them. For example, this one can be used, 1 generalized prediction can be combined with 1 bone meal to create 22 bones. It's a really good return on investment there for the 1 prediction. In between episodes, I've also been going ahead and putting in a bunch of different recipes into our molecular assemblers that we're going to possibly need in the near future. So I have a lot of the cabling all on autocraft. I have some stuff that we're going to be needing for mechanism in the future and also all of our pipe upgrades and a whole bunch of other stuff, so just some nice general stuff that's going to make crafting way easier. Now, if we come downstairs, I also added a little setup here to the right, and it basically is the general smelting setup that I had in the compact machine that I showed off a couple episodes ago, but instead, this is on autocraft now. So under here, we have the mega pattern provider is very similar to the normal pattern provider, but it can only be used in processing patterns and not in the normal 3x3 crafting patterns. So I just figured I'd put a whole bunch of these mega pattern providers down here. And what this is basically offering us is a way to smelt things like sand into glass and logs into charcoal automatically. And the reason I have this one is because I have this set to craft the black dye with this charcoal, and it's very fast. If I go ahead here and I can type in glass, and we already have 280,000 of it, but how much sand do we have? 4,000. So if I go ahead and just say craft me up 30 glass, it's going to go ahead and send it all right here, and just like that, it should be all done. It just comes right into the barrel, sends up into the pedestal, and then we import it back into our system. And I have these other pattern providers here just in case we want to set up either more smelters or other sorts of processing machines. We could probably just squeeze them in back here. And finally, the last thing I was really going and doing was just setting up a very small little automation setup here for Botania, and just to get us some basic mana going. So what I'm doing right now, which is a very simple and temporary setup, is just I have all of our endo flames put back out here, and I have them all linked to this mana spreader. And as you can see here, I have a bit of an automated setup here for how I'm dropping coal for these endo flames to grab. What I have here is an open crate from Botania, and essentially what an open crate does is it just lets whatever items are being pumped into it drop straight down. So if I take this 1 piece of coal, you'll see that it drops straight down onto the pressure plate. What that's doing is sending a redstone signal to this redstone link from create, which is going to be then locking this hopper. A block of coal will now be sitting here waiting to be picked up by an endo flame, and it won't drop any more until one grabs it. This way we're only ever going to have 1 block of coal sitting out at a time, which means that we should never have any coal lost. And I just filled up the barrel here with a bunch of blocks of coal, so this will basically run for a long time. So to start off this episode, I want to get ourselves something that I've wanted on this island for a long time, and that is creative flight. The jetpack is nice and all, but I find it's a little bit difficult to control in precise movements because of the way that the momentum works with the jetpack. So yeah, let's see if we can get ourselves some creative flight for the island. And the way I want to go about doing that is by using the RF Tools utility mod and also making use of the flight module. This could be a little expensive power-wise, but I think we're going to be okay still. What we can also do is use the machine infuser to infuse the controller to hopefully then use even less power. So let's go ahead and craft one of these up. This doesn't take too much out of the ordinary that we don't already have, just some basic blocks of resources and some ender pearls. Gives us the environmental controller. And then we can also go ahead and craft up most of the parts that we're going to need for the flight module, except for this one right here, which is the syringe. And it has to be filled with gassed essence, I guess you could say. So we're gonna have to go ahead and try and find a way to go and farm a couple of ghasts. That shouldn't be too hard because the nether is basically a mob farm waiting to happen. We can just put a platform in a soul sand valley and be totally fine. So if we go ahead and craft up a syringe, which is just very cheap to make, we can actually go ahead and bring this into the nether and go set up a platform in a soul sand valley. Now I don't go to the nether that often, so we're gonna have to set up a temporary portal once again to go through, which isn't going to be a big deal. Now, one thing I do actually want to do while I'm in the nether, apart from also getting just the gas completed, is if I come down to the quest lines here, we have to get a few more of these budding amethyst. And we can find these, I believe, in Bastion treasure stacks. I think they show up in the islands in the nether. So maybe we can go ahead and fly around and see if we can find a few more of these. Alright, so I have set up a small cobblestone platform here in a soul sand valley, not too far away from our spawn point here. We should be able to get some ghasts now. If I go ahead and step back a little bit, we should see, oh, immediately. So if I come in here really quick and just punch the gas a couple times, it should start to fill up the syringe. And I think that is actually full now. Don't think we need to do this anymore. I think we can probably just kill it normally. And there we go. We have a full syringe ready to go. But let's go ahead and do a little bit of looking around now and see if we can find a couple more of those amethyst. Oh, there we go. We got one budding amethyst right here. And we do need a few of these, so I don't know if that's going to be quite enough. We'll probably have to explore a little bit longer, but we got a good amount of loot so far. We don't really need a whole lot of the other stuff. Oh, there's one more budding amethyst, which is very good. We'll take all the mana steel for sure and all the other Botania stuff. We have 15 budding amethyst, and I think we need 16 for the quest. I was hoping to get a couple extras just in case we needed them in the future. Here we go. We got 2 budding amethyst in this chest. Nice. Here we go. We got one more budding amethyst in that chest. And I think we're... Oh, and one more there. And another one in here. Perfect. Okay, so that's 3 extras, just in case we ever need them again. So I'm happy with that loot, I think. Let's just check one more chest here. And, oh, 2 more in this one. Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, we got plenty of these now. I think we're ready to go home. So while we're thinking about it, let's go ahead and actually submit this one right away. We can also go ahead and submit the netherite ingots probably. And we can submit that. Also submit a precision mechanism. We have one of those for sure. The mushroom rice, we have to go ahead and cook in the cooking pot from Farmer's Delight, but that's actually really easy. Put the cooking pot on top. Oh, and it kind of has a little like multi-blocks thing. That looks kind of cool. We can go ahead and put in all of our materials and that just start making mushroom rice. And let's go and submit that mushroom rice. And all we need is a full mana tablet, which I think we should be able to get. All we have to do is take a diamond over here, throw it into the pool here, and then we should be able to go ahead and make the mana tablet. Let's throw the mana tablet into the mana pool here, and then we have to just right click on the pool or shift right click the pool to start draining the mana into the tablet. As you can see, the mana tablet is filling up with mana, and I think we should have enough to get it across with all these pools here. And that is a full mana tablet, I think. Let's pick it up and change it back. And we should be able to go and submit this quest. And we're done. So this is the second quest line here, ready to go. All completed. We can get a netherite oxygen can and also some of these glycerin chorused fruit. And then we're on to the atomic alloying section. Anyway, we've detoured a little bit far off what we were trying to do here. Let's get ourselves some creative flight by getting our flight module all ready to go. And let's go and infuse this environmental controller. So we can place down the infuser here and then also plug it in. And we're going to need to get a couple of the shards, dimensional shards. And that should be easy to infuse. We can even speed it up quite a bit if we want to. Just like this. And there we go. That's 100% infused. That should be a hopefully much more efficient environmental controller now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put the environmental controller in the main building in the center here, because that way it'll just be the most central location for this. So I'm even going to go ahead and put this in the floor, I think. We can configure the radius that we want this to work in, and then also the heights. So between certain Y values, I believe. So let's go ahead and add the flight module here. So right now I have this configured to be a radius of 100, which is the maximum, and also a height of 65 to 100, which means that from Y level 65 to Y level 100, we'll get creative flight. Now, this radius is a little overkill. I'm pretty sure we only need about 64 as our radius, which will give us a little bit of play on each side of our island, but not too much more than that. As for the height, I do want to increase our height that we're going to get this for to be a little higher, maybe 140 for now. And for the lowest point, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of ability to go under our island if we want to. Let's see, is that between 20 and 140, radius 64? We're using 4,600 FE per tick, which actually isn't that bad. I thought it would be worse than that. So effectively, we should have creative flight pretty much everywhere on our island, as long as we're below 140, which, you know, that's plenty of height, I think. One thing I am going to make, though, just to be safe, is to make the void totem of void undying. And this will be able to go into our bauble slot. I think just a charm slot. We come down to the bottom. And this should stop us from dying if we fall into the void. And I kind of want to go ahead and test it to see how it works. So let's just go and jump off. Oh, there we go. So we actually spawned above our island and we should be able to catch ourselves now with creative flight. Nice. Does it actually use the totem? It doesn't. So that's actually really, really awesome. So I would highly recommend making one of these if you are going to be doing stuff like this, just in case you do lose your creative flight somewhere out there and end up falling into the void. The only annoying thing about the environmental controller is that spark is where the environmental controller is, and no matter what you do, you can't get rid of that. You can't turn that off or anything. It's just there. So unfortunately, that's just going to be something that we deal with. We are going to be able to see that from wherever we are on the base, but I think for creative flight, that's a bit of a small price to pay. If anyone knows that there is a way to turn that off, then please let me know, because that would be amazing. So I think the plan for today's episode is to get ourselves going into some more Botania. More than just what's behind me, of course. Obviously, we want to get something more concrete than just this setup here behind us, because there is a lot in Botania that is really cool to check out, and we have to get into a bunch of it in order to complete the pack anyway. I have a build in mind that I have been working in creative to design, and I cannot wait to show you guys. So I think the plan is to build the Botania building that I have created pretty much right here where I'm standing. And it's a pretty decent sized build too, so it's going to take up quite a bit of space. What I want to actually do is make use of these rings of mana to actually go ahead and store some of this mana before we take this all down. And what we can go ahead and do is craft up one of these bands of mana. This effectively acts like a tablet of mana, but you can put it in your ring slot. I want to go ahead and make some of this stuff up, but we have to make obviously a little bit of living rocks. That means we're going to have to grab some of our pure daisies here and then also some stone. And I also want to upgrade this right away to the greater band of mana, which is the terrasteel ingot version of this band. And we actually have a couple of terrasteel ingots just from going and looting some of the chests in the nether. We got some of the terrasteel nuggets that we have combined into the terrasteel ingots. So we actually do have 4 ingots worth. So we can spare probably one of those to make the band of mana. So this acts very similarly to the tablets. What we can actually go ahead and do is throw the tablet, or throw the mana band into the pool, and it'll slowly but surely fill it up, and then we can go ahead and drain the other pools as well. So we have a good variety of materials that I use in this build, so we have quite a bit of collecting ahead of us to do, but I'm going to go ahead and get started on collecting all these materials, and then I will come back when we are pretty much ready to go. Okay, so I finished gathering all the materials for this build. I think this should be just enough for what we're going to need. Some of these were a bit of a pain. I had to get a couple of these petal blocks from Botania, and I used the little setup, as you saw, the little modular router setup to help me farm them a little quicker. But, well, with everything in place here, let's get this montage underway. I think this looks so cool. I really tried to create something a little more unique for the Botania build, so I decided to kind of model the shape of it after the face of the spore blossom flower. It's not exact, but I just took a little bit of inspiration from the design of the spore blossom, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I actually went ahead and changed out the roof of the bee building to be an oak top instead of dark oak, because with the dark oak from the Botania building and everything else around here, it started to look a little too dark, so I decided to kind of just make it a little different and add the lighter oak in there instead. But now we have a space to do all of our Botania stuff. So I went ahead and reset up a very similar design for mana production to what we had before in that temporary setup, but I just kind of scaled it up a little bit. As you can see in here, I basically have the exact same thing going on, where I have just some barrels which are going to be full of coal blocks going into an open crate. And I have the hopper locking it, so underneath here I have the other links. So when there is no coal to be had, it'll just stay there and it won't use up extra coal. I went ahead and made 8 more of these endo flames and made them into the floating versions. That way you can come in here and you can basically change the floor to whatever you want. And I decided to do a living rock floor, and I thought that looks pretty good. And in here I'm just going ahead and just using some of the stone in here to generate more living rock. We have all the mana spreaders pointing into the main splitter in the middle, which will be sharing the mana across all these mana pools. Now I want to make sure that these endo flames are properly linked up to the mana spreader, so we're going to shift right click and then also shift right click on the desired spreaders. We're also going to want probably a demagnetizer in here because I'm just going to end up picking up all the coal. I'll put it right on top of this for now. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of coal, a couple of coal blocks out of here. We should have enough to get started. Okay, so that was grabbed over here, so that should actually reach then, which is good. It looks like it's 3 blocks away, but let's go ahead and just start putting in a little bit on the other side as well. So they're slowly but surely all turning on and starting to burn and produce mana, which will not be very fast right now because the endo flames are actually quite slow at producing mana, but I think for a beginning setup here, this will be totally fine, and then we can go ahead and change it down the road once we have other options for mana. So we're going to want to move all the mana out of this room here eventually once it's producing over into this room, because this is where we're going to set up some of the actual Botania production stuff like the agglomeratio plate and the elven trading portal. So I think that'll be a really good idea to bring everything in here, and I think I'm just going to make use of some sparks to do that at some point once we have access to some of the augments for the sparks. I'll explain that more in the future, but for now we're just going to put some mana pools down here, which is going to be how we're going to send the mana over to this room. So the next thing that we're going to have to make to start getting more into Botania is going to be the runic altar. This just takes some living rock and a mana diamond, and this is how we're going to do all of our rune crafting right now. I'm going to place this temporarily right here because we're going to actually need to give this some mana. So what we're going to do is probably just grab the mana splitters or the mana spreaders and point them here once we're ready to go. So in Botania, the best way to move mana around is by making use of these items called sparks, and they just take 2 petals and some blaze powder and a gold nugget, which is doable. We have a bunch of these, so we can craft up a few sparks for now. Alright, there we go. We have 6 sparks now, so I'm going to go ahead and put 1 spark on each of these mana pools. There are 2 augments that we want to make for our sparks. One is called the recessive augment, and one's called the dominant augment. Essentially how this works is any mana pool that has a recessive augment on it will try and send its mana to every other spark first. So for example, if 3 of these mana pools had recessive sparks and one just had a normal spark like it is now, they would all try and send their mana into this one mana pool, which can be a really handy thing for trying to consolidate all your mana into one area. The dominant spark works kind of the opposite. It essentially will try and pull mana from every other spark location, which can be really handy for stuff like the runic altar. Though I'm not sure if this runic altar here can be automated with a spark. We might have to get the next version of this, which is, I believe, the elven altar. Yeah, spark can be attached. So we actually have to upgrade to this one, I think, to fully automate it, which isn't going to be too bad because all we have to do is get some dream rock, which means we have to set up the elven trade, but that's not too far away. So to make the recessive and dominant sparks augments, we have to make a rune of earth and a rune of fire, which is made in the runic altar using some mana powder, mana steel, and a couple other resources, which we should have. If I go ahead and grab all these. So what we're actually going to do is grab our mana spreaders and just take these 2 and point them at the runic altar. So the rune of earth is just a mana powder, a mana steel, a mushroom of any kind, a block of coal, and I also believe we need to get a stone. Oh, so the endo flame is in the way here. So actually we're gonna have to move this a little bit. Let's move it right here actually. That might actually be a little bit better. And now you can see it's charging up with a little like progress bar. And once it's at the very end, we can go ahead and put a piece of living rock on top like this, and then right click with our wand of the forest. And now we have 2 runes of earth. We can do the exact same thing as we do with the petal apothecary. We can just right click with an empty hand and it'll refill the previous recipe. And very similarly, we can do the fire runes here as well, which should be fairly straightforward. And there we go. So now we have to make use of some of the pixie dust. We've gotten some of this from the loot in the nether. 1 rune of earth and a mana steel ingot, and that'll make us a recessive augment. Let's go ahead and make 4 of these if we can. Perfect. So now what we can actually go ahead and do is put 2 sparks on these pools. And then once we go ahead and apply our recessive augments here, so you'll see what starts to happen here is all the mana is being sent out of our pools here and into these pools. So this is going to be kind of the in-between mana pool where we have a little bit of storage for mana. And then over here, I'm going to set up the elven portal where we have a couple of dominant sparks here. And then that'll keep the portal open for us to do all of our elven trading. We also have to get some of these Natura pylons, which I think are doable. Okay, there we go. We have some mana diamonds and we should be able to grab these pylons. Actually, we only needed 2 of them, I think. Let's grab some living rock here and grab 2 more mana pools. So I'm going to go ahead and assume it's going to be somewhere like this. And we have to have then our pylons on either side. And we can actually go ahead and put sparks down on these mana pools, even though they're covered up by the pylons. Then we can apply the dominant augment, just like so, and then replace these. And now we can see that it's all actually draining out of these mana pools too, into these as well. And we're going to have to fill these up a little bit more, and then we can actually open the portal. The elven portal requires a couple of things. There's something called the elven gateway core that we need, which takes a couple of terra steel nuggets. So normally you would have to go ahead and make some terra steel first. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and grab one because we have some terra steel. So we can go ahead and place down the elven core right in the middle. Then we want to make a little bit of, I believe, just some living wood. So let's go ahead and just make the sides. Now, the middle blocks have to be a special type of wood. So let's go ahead and make sure those are broken out. And then just some wood up here. Now, we have to make, I think it's called the glistening. Yeah, is it the glimmering wood? Yeah, we have to add some glowstone to this. So let's go ahead and grab a little bit of glowstone and also the living wood logs. I think the logs are going to be okay. We go ahead and do this and this. So that should be big enough to be the portal. Once we have enough mana in these mana pools, I think it takes about 2 mana pools total to start this thing up. Maybe even a little bit more. But we can right click on the elven gateway core and that should open the portal. I'm actually going to go ahead and use our mana ring to start dumping a little extra mana into here. So let's go ahead and just fill this up a little bit. That should be enough. Let's go ahead and just take it back for now. Put our mana ring back on and let's go ahead and right click on the gateway core. And it worked. We got the advancement world calling and we opened the portal to Elfheim. Now we can do a bunch of trading with the other dimension over in Elfheim. This is not a portal we can actually go through. I believe there is an add-on mod that adds the dimension that you can travel to, but this is meant just normally as a trading portal. For example, we can go ahead and take some of our living rock now, which we have a couple of extra pieces here, and throw some through and get back out the dream rock, which is what we actually have to use to upgrade our runic altar. Let's go ahead and upgrade this now to the elven altar. And this can now actually take a spark. So let's go and add a spark to this. Put the spark on top and a dominant spark, so now it'll always grab mana when it needs it. But we made amazing progress this episode, getting started into Botania, and we have a great foundation now. In the next episode, we're probably going to go ahead and get ourselves all the way through Botania to the point where we can fight the final boss of Botania, which is the Gaia Guardian. But anyways, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. The link is in the description down below. But that's it for me, everybody. I hope you all have a good one, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!